ExFAT is a Microsoft file system optimized for flash drives. It is proprietary and patented. ExFAT can be used where the NTFS file system is not a feasible solution, or where the file size limit of the standard FAT32 file system is unacceptable. Although the industry standard FAT32 file system supports volumes up to 2 TB, ExFAT has been adopted by the SD Card Association as the default file system for SDXC cards larger than 32 GB because it supports large volumes, large files, and better contiguous on-disk layout. Overview: ExFAT was first introduced as part of Windows CE, an embedded Windows operating system. Most of the vendors signing on for licenses of ExFAT are either for embedded systems or device manufacturers that produce media that will be pre-formatted with ExFAT. The entire FAT family, including ExFAT, are used for embedded systems because it is lightweight and are better suited for solutions that have low memory and low power requirements, and can be implemented in firmware. ExFAT is a proprietary file system protected under U.S. patent law, and its initial application was issued on July 10, 2009 under the application number US 20081688029. On November 12, 2013, the patent was granted by the U.S. Patent Office under US 8583708. Microsoft had also applied for, and so far in some cases received additional U.S. patents on separate components that are used within ExFAT. On November 27, 2012, U.S. Patent US 8321439 was granted for quick file name lookup using namehash, which is an algorithm used in ExFAT to speed up file searches. Since Microsoft has not officially released the entire ExFAT specification, the namehash patent application is a key document in providing internal details in the understanding of the file system, since those details were revealed in Appendix A of the application. To provide an improvement in the allocation of cluster storage for a new file, Microsoft incorporated a method to pre-allocate contiguous clusters and bypass the use of updating the FAT table, and on December 10, 2013 the U.S. Patent Office granted patent US 8606830. One feature of ExFAT provides atomic transactions for the multiple steps of updating the file system metadata. The feature, called Transaction Safe FAT, or TexFAT, was granted a patent by the U.S. Patent Office under US 7613738 on November 3, 2009. ExFAT is also supported in a number of media devices such as modern flat-panel TVs, media centers, and portable media players. Some vendors of flash media, including USB pen drives, compact flash and solid-state drives, are shipping from the factory some of their high-capacity media pre-formatted with the ExFAT file system. For example, SanDisk ships their 256 GB CF cards as ExFAT. ExFAT, and the rest of the FAT family of file systems, does not use indexes for file names, unlike NTFS that it uses B-trees for file searching. When a file needs to be accessed, in order to find the file, the directory needs to be searched, looking at each file one by one until a match is found. For file names that are less than 16 characters in length, one file name record is required, but the entire file is represented by 3 32-byte directory records. This is called a directory file set, and a 256 MB subdirectory can hold up to 2,796,202 file sets. To help improve the sequential searching of the directories, a hash value of the file name is derived for each file and stored in the directory record. When searching for a file, the file name is first converted to uppercase using the ExFAT table and then hashed using a proprietary patented algorithm into a 16-bit hash value. Each record in the directory is searched by comparing the hash value. When a match is found, the file names are compared to ensure that the proper file was located in case of collisions. This improved performance because only 2 characters have to be compared for each file. This significantly reduces the CPU cycles because most file names are more than 2 characters in size and each compare is only on 2 characters until the intended file is located. ExFAT breaks the 4 GB file size barrier, allowing larger files, which is needed for long continuous recording of HD video, which, depending on resolution and compression options, could exceed the 4 GB limit in less than an hour. Current digital cameras using FAT32 will break the video files into multiple segments of approximately 2 or 4 GB. With the increase of capacity and the increase of data being transferred, the write operation needs to be made more efficient. SDXC cards, running at AS1 have a minimum guaranteed write speed of 10 Mbps, and ExFAT plays a factor in achieving that throughput through the reduction of the file system overhead in cluster allocation. This is achieved through the introduction of a cluster bitmap and elimination of writes to the FAT table. A single bit in the directory record is used when the file is contiguous to tell the ExFAT file driver to ignore the FAT table. Like NTFS, ExFAT can pre-allocate disk space for a file by just marking arbitrary space on disk as allocated. ExFAT has two separate 64-bit lengths in the directory for each file. One is the valid data length, which indicates the real size of the file, and the other indicates a physical data length. ExFAT introduces metadata integrity through the use of checksums. There are 3 checksums currently in use. The volume boot record is a 12-sector region that contains the boot records, BIOS parameter block, OEM parameters and the checksum sector. The checksum sector is a checksum of the previous 11 sectors, with the exception of 3 bytes in the boot sector. This provides integrity of the VBR by determining if the VBR was modified. The most common cause could be a boot sector virus, but this would also catch any other corruption to the VBR. A second checksum is used for the ERF-CARS table. This is a static table and should never change. Any corruption in the table could prevent files from being located because this table is used to convert the file names to uppercase when searching to locate a file. The third checksum is in the directory file sets. Multiple directory records are used to define a single file, and this is called a file set. This file set has metadata including the file name, timestamps, attributes, address of first cluster location of the data, file lengths, and the file name. A checksum is taken over the entire file set, and a mismatch would occur if the directory file set was accidentally or maliciously changed. When the file system is mounted, and the integrity check is conducted, these hashes are verified. Mounting also includes comparison of the version of the ExFAT file system by the driver to make sure the driver is compatible with the file system it is trying to mount, and to make sure that none of the required directory records are missing. If any of these checks fail, the file system should not be mounted, although in certain cases it may mount read-only. The file system provides extensibility through template-based metadata definitions using generic layouts and generic patterns. Microsoft has not officially released the complete ExFAT file system specification, and a restrictive license from Microsoft is required in order to make and distribute ExFAT implementations. Microsoft also asserts patents on ExFAT which make it impossible to re-implement its functionality in a compatible way without violating a large percentage of them. This renders the implementation, distribution, and use of ExFAT as a part of free or open-source operating systems or of commercial software, for which the vendors could not obtain a license from Microsoft, legally difficult, especially in countries that recognize United States software patents. Most consumer electronic devices could only handle FAT12, FAT32, rendering ExFAT impractical as a universal exchange format. Linux support for ExFAT is still limited. The specifications, features, and requirements of the ExFAT file system include file size limit of 128 pi/1 bytes, raised from 4 GB/1 bytes in a standard FAT32 file system. Therefore, for the typical user, seamless interoperability between Windows and OS X platforms for files in excess of 4 GB. Scalability to large disk sizes, circa 128 pi/b maximum, 512 TB recommended maximum, raised from the 32-bit limit of standard FAT32 partitions. Free space allocation and delete performance improved due to introduction of a free space bitmap. Timestamp granularity of 10 ms for create and modified times. Timestamp granularity for last access time to double seconds. Optional support for UTC timestamps. Optional support for access control lists. Optional support for ExFAT, a transactional file system standard. Support for up to 2,796,202 files per directory only. Microsoft documents a limit of 65,534 files per subdirectory for their FAT32 implementation, but other operating systems have no special limit for the number of files in a FAT32 directory. FAT32 implementations in other operating systems allow an unlimited number of files up to the number of available clusters. Boundary alignment offset for the FAT table, boundary alignment offset for the data region, provision for OEM-definable parameters to customize the file system for specific device characteristics. On-disk storage of file valid data length through the use of two distinct lengths fields which can be used to pre-allocate a file. Maximum number of files on volume circa 232-11, cluster size up to 32 MB. Metadata integrity with checksums, template-based metadata structures, removal of the physical dot and directory entries that appear in subdirectories. ExFAT does not support short file names. Windows XP and Windows Vista require certain updates for ExFAT support. Windows Vista is unable to use ExFAT drives for ReadyBoost. Windows 7 removes this limitation, enabling ReadyBoost caches larger than 4 GB. The standard ExFAT implementation is not journaled and only uses a single file allocation table and free space map. FAT file systems instead used alternating tables, as this allowed recovery of the file system if the media was ejected during a write. The optional ExFAT component adds support for additional backup tables and maps, but may not be supported. Adoption: ExFAT is supported in Windows XP and Windows Server 2003 with update KB 955704, Windows Embedded CE 6.0, Windows Vista with Service Pack 1, Windows Server 2008, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows Server 2008-02, Marker OSA X Snow Leopard starting from 10.6.5, Marker OSA X Lion, OSA X Mountain Lion, and OSA X Mavericks. Companies can integrate ExFAT into a specific group of consumer devices, including cameras, camcorders, and digital photo frames for a flat fee. Mobile phones, PCs, and networks have a different volume pricing model. Microsoft has entered into licensing agreements with BlackBerry, Panasonic, Sanyo, Sony, Canon, Aspen Avionics, and BMW. A Fuse-based implementation named Fuse ExFAT, or ExFAT Fuse, with read-write support is available for FreeBSD and multiple Linux distributions. A kernel implementation has also been released, written by Samsung. It was initially released on GitHub unintentionally, and later released officially by Samsung in compliance with the GPL. None of the solutions can become an official part of Linux due to the patent-encumbered status of the ExFAT file system. Proprietary read-write solutions licensed and derived from the Microsoft ExFAT implementation are available for Android, Linux, and other operating systems from Paragon Software Group and Tuxera. ExFiles is a proprietary, full-featured implementation, intended to be portable to 32-bit systems. NTFS is a full-featured implementation for embedded devices. Two experimental, unofficial solutions are available for DOS. The loadable ExFAT driver requires Panasonic's USB stack for DOS and only works with USB storage devices. The open-source ExFAT executable is an ExFAT file system reader, and requires the HXDOS extender to work. There are no native ExFAT real-mode DOS drivers, which would allow usage of, or booting from ExFAT volumes. Marker OSA X Snow Leopard 10.6.5 and later can create, read, write, verify, and repair ExFAT file systems. See also, File Allocation Table, Design of the FAT file system, List of file systems and especially UDF, SDXC, Memory Stick XC, Notes. References. External links, File System Functionality Comparison of ExFAT, FAT32, NTFS, UDF, ExFAT Overview in Windows Embedded CE, Transaction Safe FAT File System Overview in Windows Mobile 6.5, Personal Storage Era Opportunities and Challenges for Pocket-Sized Storage Devices in the Windows World, ExFAT File System Licensing, Reverse Engineering the Microsoft ExFAT File System, SANS Institute. U.S. Patent Application 2,009,164,440 Quick File Name Lookup using Name Hash. Microsoft Corporation. Contains ExFAT Specification Revision 1.00. U.S. Patent Application 2,009,164,539 Contiguous File Allocation in an Extensible File System. Microsoft Corporation. ExFAT ships on all SDXC cards, SD Card Association, the Extended FAT File System, differentiating with FAT32 File System, Linux Conference, October 2011.